Hi, I'm Bob Bunting, and I'm an Oracle Enterprise Cloud Architect with Oracle's Department of Defense team. And today I'm here to talk to you about the Database Platform as a Service and Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. This is not a contract. This is a technical general discussion. So the Oracle Database has continuously innovated through various different major trends in IT. When I started with the Oracle Database, it was back in the days of client server. The focus at that time was OLTP and just how to make transactions faster without locking. And then also in that era, we were also starting to deal with more and more data and starting to work with analytic systems. Then along comes the internet, and the internet's all about scale. And with the scale, that comes the requirements for availability. And so Oracle starts to add things like, that's when we introduced real application clusters and data guard and new advancements in backup and recovery. And we had Java and XML. And then cloud. Cloud's all about automation and letting you focus on your business and not focus on managing that IT infrastructure. Actually, even before cloud, Oracle came up with a concept of engineered systems. You see that's available in our cloud as an Exadata. And an Exadata is all about delivering a box where you focus on using the database, not all the infrastructure that's managed for you and where you're given blueprints by Oracle on exactly how to run an Exadata machine, and you just focus on the database. So throughout these various different industry trends, there's been companies that have come and gone. There were companies specifically designed for doing analytic queries and reports with using technologies like offloading queries into the database. We still have some of those companies available today, but the leading platform for analytic type queries is the Oracle Exadata-based machine and the Oracle database. So that's one example of how Oracle's adopted and incorporated these technologies. Also in the analytics space, you'll see over on the right under cloud, we have Oracle in-memory. So there were specialized in-memory databases, but we learned that customers don't want to move all their data out of where they are and retrain themselves and put data in a specialized database. And so what Oracle Database did is we adopted in-memory. So you have all the best of in-memory technology with the query offloading and so forth. That helps us with analytic queries. So going back to like the internet, and then let's look in that box. So the Java, the XML, that was the age of people are starting to do object-oriented programming, and people said, oh, we're going to start using an object database. Well, guess what happened? Oracle added XML. We now see that object relational mapping and so forth, and Oracle remains still the backbone of applications in that space. And as we move forward into cloud, everybody's talking about REST and JSON and all of that. And Oracle again adopted and transformed and added new features. And so Oracle is a repository where we can generate data back for REST for the latest cloud first type applications and JSON format. Oracle Database can be a JSON store. So the key point here is over time, Oracle has adapted these technologies and brought it into the Oracle Database. So in today's discussions, we have people that say, oh, well, we need to pull our data out of an Oracle database and maybe put it in a specialized cloud database, and one database if we're doing analytics, and one database if we're doing OLTP. And when we do our lift and shift, let's not lift and shift, left rewrite. Well, no, what we're saying here is let's look at the history and move forward, on that history where Oracle Database is the database for the cloud. One of the big advantages of Oracle in the cloud is it's the same architecture, the same skills, the same software. You can literally unplug and plug into the cloud with Oracle's pluggable database architecture. Or I know a lot of you aren't using pluggable databases just yet, so you can do a backup and recovery. And simply do an RMAN recovery into the cloud, and that's how you move your database. And so Oracle supports the hybrid cloud architecture. So the same scalability, performance, same features that you know from Oracle, they're all available in the cloud. A lot of steps that we had to do on-prem in order to get to building a database. And of course in the cloud, it's all automated with cloud tooling. So let's take a look at what creating an Oracle database and databases that are already created look like in the cloud. Let's start with launch a database system. So we would need to give it a name. And then we would select the data center for the database. Do we want to build the database on a virtual machine? Do we want to use one of those bare metal servers? Or do we want to build an Exadata cloud service? There's a separate video on OCI infrastructure and also on Exadata if you want to learn more about those areas. Just for an example here, Exadata, we may start with a small quarter rack. And then in the case of an Exadata, that is dedicated infrastructure to your organization. So you have total isolation if you decide to do Exadata. Also, the same thing with bare metal. It's a dedicated bare metal server where you can have up to currently 52 OCPUs of processing power and local NVMe storage. For very high performance of a single instance database. And most often you're going to start a little bit smaller, where you would start with a virtual machine and you pick one of the cloud shapes based on the number of CPUs and memory that you need. You can go up to 24 OCPUs in a single instance. So let's just pick one of those. Then you pick your database edition. From enterprise edition to high performance to extreme performance. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about the different options that are available in those editions. And then we pick storage size, which of course we're going to start with a certain amount of storage, but we can always scale up that storage. And then here's a very important part, particularly for you in the Navy, where you have an enterprise license agreement, and some other DoD agencies may have enterprise agreements, or you may have existing on-prem licenses. And so what you're able to do is, rather than, if you use license included, you would get the license as part of the cloud service. But when you have existing agreements, as I just spoke about, then you can bring your own license. And so therefore your cost for the cloud service will be much lower because you're applying your existing on-prem licenses to that. You provide your private keys so you can log in, and a virtual cloud network, a subnet. So we're going to put this on a data tier. We talk a little bit more about that in the cloud infrastructure brief about the networking and security around that. We give the database a name. And we select a database version. So you can see 11.204 all the way up to 18C. The latest innovations for Oracle Database are released cloud first. And we provide a strong password. Do we want to enable automatic backup? And then once we fill in all the things, we hit Launch Database, and then we end up with something very much like what we have here. These are databases that have already been launched and provisioned and are up and running. So let's go ahead and click down on the Demo 1 database. As I mentioned, you can scale storage up. So if we wanted to scale storage up on this particular database, we could do that here. Here we have a database, and this little indication indicates that we have a DataGuard copy. So if we need a standby database, what we can do is we simply tell the Cloud Console, create me a standby database. Here's one already been created. Let's go down here. So here we have our DataGuard association. And if something happened to this instance and we wanted to fail over, we'd go to the other instance and do a failover. But here, suppose we want to do a graceful switchover. We just come down and we gracefully switch over to another standby database. That database could be in another fault domain, or it could be in another data center. So that's part of our strategy for providing high availability and failover. The other thing that we see from the cloud tooling we can see right here is database patching. So as soon as a patch becomes available, it shows up in our console. And so from the console, we can click on the patch. We can then do a pre-check to make sure that the patch is going to be applied successfully, and then we do an apply. So no more manually downloading patches and doing the configuration and so forth. And remember, if you wanted to test, for example, in the cloud, you could always clone the database and then test with the patch and to make sure everything is good, and then you could patch your production database. So let's go back to our various different databases that we have here. We're looking at single instance databases, and we may create databases with as few as maybe 2 OCPUs all the way up to 24 OCPUs. Remember, I talked about real application clusters. A lot of customers get a little concerned. How am I going to understand how to build all that infrastructure for an on-premise system? Because you have to think about networking and interconnect between the various different nodes that are talking, because a rack database is one database with multiple compute nodes serving requests for that database. So here we are with a RAC database. We've clicked down into database 1, and then we go over here and note that there are 2 nodes. So those are 2 servers that are serving that single database. So what I can do is, if something happens to node 1 of that database, or I deliberately want to do a rolling patch so I still have database availability, I can take one of those 2 nodes offline and still have a database available. It's generally a good idea to have a standby database available as well. So again, all those things that used to take us weeks or months to plan, we're simply doing here through the Cloud Console. So if we come back and look at some slides here, the various different database editions, we can see that we have the Enterprise Edition, and of course, we need to focus on security. So every database in the cloud comes with data at rest encryption. So we enable transparent data encryption for every single database. We enable encryption for data in motion as well. So we have standard Enterprise Edition features. Also with Enterprise Edition, you have hybrid columnar compression for compressing data that's not changing frequently. That's used a lot of times in analytics or for archiving. Data masking, diagnostics and tuning capabilities. And we have the high performance. That adds things like multi-tenant. But in the cloud world, DevOps is big, and being able to rapidly spin up and clone and create environments and automatically push environments into production and so forth. So multi-tenant enables and supports DevOps. It also enables us to very rapidly create databases, and again, kind of in the DevOps area, you know, cloning databases for testing and that sort of purposes, and of course moving them around. Partitioning for managing very large databases, compression, and of course advanced security, label security, database vault, so row-level security in the database enforced by labels, database vault, which is allows us separation of duties, which is so important for information assurance. And then on the extreme performance side, that's where we get to RAC, we get to in-memory technology and data guard instances that can be open for read, so we can offload our reporting. And again, remember the Cloud Console I just showed you. It's a matter of a few clicks, and you create that sort of those types of databases. So in review, what we have as Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Database Service, we have at the very low end databases, the Oracle database that operates exactly as you're familiar with it on-prem, that can run on a VM. We can scale it up and we can run it on a bare metal server. We can go to a clustered database and we can go to Exadata. And to you, as someone that's using the database, it just looks like an Oracle database. We're just sizing it so that it meets your requirements. So Oracle is very unique in having the high availability and security. Remember, I just showed you in the console setting up DataGuard. I mean, it's clicks and it's managed by that cloud infrastructure. And Oracle is the only vendor that, a cloud vendor, that can do real application clusters with the clustering that's going on, which means that essentially with Oracle, we can provide continuous availability for the database in the event that, you know, or for other cloud vendors, you know, if the database instance were to fail, it simply has to restart. With real application clusters, we can provide that level of continuous availability. And of course, we're always focused on security. That security rides on top of our Oracle Cloud Infrastructure security lists, audit logs, and then we inherit some other things for database, which we haven't talked about a whole lot yet, which is tagging, limits, usage integration. So, you know, in a cloud broker type of scenario where you need to charge folks for, and different organizations for their cloud utilization and so forth, you have this tagging infrastructure, and then you can pull utilization information based on tags and so forth, and that level of usage integration. So again, a little review of the different shapes that are available for Oracle Database in the cloud for virtual machines. And then a reminder of how simple it is. Once you provision a database, a DBA sees the Oracle database like normal, and they see storage presented to them with automatic storage management. So all this stuff goes on in terms of making mirroring storage, making it highly available, detecting problems. An Oracle database administrator sees, as they would on-prem with automatic storage management, a data disk group. And that data disk group is essentially all they have to worry about when they're creating databases. And all the rest of it's managed for them. So again, the familiarity with on-prem just optimized for the cloud. And that's what Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is all about. Believe it or not, it's all about making systems perform even better than they do on-premise. And we talked a little bit about availability, and that because that is a differentiator for Oracle. Oracle's had what we call the maximum availability architecture for well over 25 years. It's a group within Oracle. It's a series of white papers. It's a series of best practices. It's all about how you architect and design systems to meet your availability requirements and best practice for using the tools. On the slide, you can see that the MAA team has created 2 additional white papers, as well as many other resources that are out there that talk about specifically, well, how do you do disaster and recovery in the cloud? I showed you, the data guard feature and how you might use that, but the white papers kind of cover a more comprehensive plan for, how, when and why you would use those features, when and why you would bring in RAC and so forth. And we put it in nice simple buckets to understand: bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And with that, you implement certain technologies. And then, just for an example, bronze architecture, very simple, single instance database, very low cost to run. Few CPUs, you do a local backup, it's being backed up to object storage, that's being replicated to another data center. If you have any problem with your primary database, you can simply spin up a copy at your failover data center, or spin up a copy at your primary database. And then on the extreme side, the platinum reference architecture, which is all about things might fail underneath, including an entire database or database node or compute node, but what happens to the end user? They don't know anything happened. So there's a lot that goes into that starts with a clustered database so that you can have node failures where you can do rolling patches, as I was talking about, and then in the event of a catastrophic failure or a regional failure and a natural disaster or something that would affect power or something that we hope never happens in the primary data center, then we end up with being able to fail over to our COOP site. So, from bronze all the way up to platinum, and your Oracle representatives will be happy to work with you and talk about what your unique requirements are. And again, I think sometimes when we talk from Oracle, we get so excited about how much power and performance we have. And so even though I'm talking a lot about that, remember that Oracle makes it very easy for you to manage your smaller databases and that workload too, and very cost effective. By taking lower prices to begin with for compute and OCI, as well as we're taking the labor out of it, and we're just letting you use those same skill sets that you're familiar with from an Oracle database. So let's sum it up with a few key points. So it's a full-featured platform as a service for Oracle database. So Oracle is providing automatic patching and provisioning. We're providing that automatic storage management. Whatever your requirement is for availability, we can meet that requirement. Native capabilities, maximum availability architecture, and for our most extreme demanding applications and performance and availability, that's when we have the Exadata. And remember, the Exadata looks like any other database in the cloud. You just have that extreme performance around it. And again, just one key point, but it is a very important differentiator, is that we don't charge ingress and egress fees. That makes our costs predictable. And so, the Oracle database is a very clear choice for running in the cloud. The same technologies that you're familiar with on-prem. And then we wrap that with all the other capabilities of the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure to spin up mid-tiers that have mid-tier servers that are running all sorts of different applications, Oracle applications, open source applications, maybe applications from the marketplace that are running things like eBusiness Suite, things like PeopleSoft. We bring all that together. And the Oracle database is the power behind all that for OLTP applications and decision support applications. Have comprehensive training. And we also, and you'll find this in the OCI videos, cloud infrastructure videos, we have certifications, and your DLT or Oracle representative can point you to that information. Thank you very much for your time today.